Hello guys, Lich here. So in 0.5.2 patch note, one of the bug of the Raven flock is getting fixed. So now the Mist Raven from the Raven flock does count as allies, and that allow me to continue on this build because I do neglect this build in a bit because it doesn't work before. So now since it's worked, I leveled this one up to 94 and I tried a bunch of setup and I think I'm pretty happy with the current setup. So this video will go into detail about this setup. And before we start, I want to mention that I do not recommend doing this on the budget. The same with Ferrasta. This skill needs a lot of help in order for it to perform decently, even though the bug is fixed, but this skill is still like a lot of things. For example, like we don't even have 5 support that we can use, so you do need a lot of help from your items, so it's going to require some currency to make this works. And with that said, let's just fire them up to do some showcase. And I'm doing the T15. This is a 8 mod T15, and I'm using Abyss because I'm right now farming Abyss, so we don't really have too much effectiveness. We have some effectiveness from the Doriani. This is the mask that I'm using, and we also got some effectiveness from the mask, but we don't have any effectiveness on the tablet anymore. So that is the content I'm running at the end game. I think a lot of people also playing the Abyss. I'm not doing whole city biome stuff. For me, it's a little bit too sweaty. And this is on the early map. Be careful because you don't have the Raven yet, so you don't have the damage buff. You also do not have the AoE buff. So take your time early on. Just try to get out of the flocks, and when you get like a 20 flocks, you will be zooming. So as you can see over here, the explosion really carried the clear. Like you can clear a lot of things, even sometimes the rare monster. The explosion from Lich is really strong, and that's especially what we leverage to make the clear become really good. And even for the single target, it's not super crazy single target, but it's still pretty good. It's good enough to do like the rogue exile, to do the map boss pretty fast. I think the map boss near here. Okay, let's just do the map boss first. And here we just pop up the refutations, and then we do the Raven. And of course, you're going to run toward the directions. And generally, just be careful with the boss. When you have the Archon, you can actually spam the Raven. You can have multiple Raven instant at the same time, but do remember that the Raven, every time you cast them, the Mud Flight, you're going to cost you 10 Ravens. So if you spam them too much, you're going to end up losing all your Raven. So that's one thing to be aware of. And next, let's find the Abyss so I can showcase how this build perform on Abyss. And one thing about Abyss with this build is you need to be a little bit careful when the Abyss monsters spawn on the pit, because if you're not careful, you can easily accidentally kill the Abyss with the Amanamo mod, because as you can see over here, everything that near you, as long as it's getting cursed, a lot of them will explode. And if you're getting too close, sometimes the Abyss monsters spawn first, and then you put down your Mud Flight and they cast the Black Cloud and you lose some currency that way. So I'll be a little bit careful, because the explode, you're not really able to control the explode because it's a chance. So what I like to do is I will like to put the Mud Flight on the pit, and I will go around to kill these the other stuff. So whenever it trigger, it's already have some Mud Flight ready on them. So in case I got some Amanamu rare monster, they will usually die before they can cast the Black Cloud, so I don't have to worry about like pulling out and all that stuff, because it can be a little bit annoying. And as you can see over here, like everything just die when they come out, so no pulling necessary. But yeah, just be careful. Like you see, we got the almond without you have to pull out. This is really nice if you're farming Abyss, because the pull out strategy is sometimes can be quite annoying to do. But once again, just be careful about it, because if the monster already spawn, it's better to just let them spawn first. Because if you just keep pressing them, sometimes they're going to cast the Black Cloud, and you put down your Mud Flight, and you cannot really undo the Mud Flight. So they will die inside the cloud, or you trigger some explosion and they will die that way too. So just be careful, because the explosion of that There we go, we got the Omen. And there, as you can see, the cloud is spawning. And you have to be sometimes be careful so you not like accidentally kill them. Because sometimes some monster that does get through. And if you just put down your Raven mindlessly, sometimes you can easily just kill them out of nowhere. Because the Mudflake can kill them pretty fast too. Alright, so that basically is the Abyss, and I will just portal back. So next, let's do some showcase on the Citadel. This is a 8-mod map with 125 wage chance, and 4 tablet for the quantity of waystones, and I will cut on the boss fight to make the video, so the video doesn't take too long. So here is a Doriani fight, just to showcase the single target on Citadel, because it still have good enough damage. Let's try to trigger the Archon. Doesn't seem to be able to, so unfortunately. I mistimed the refutation too, I think. But it's still pretty good. Alright, I will cut into the phase 2 because this is where the Dorian is going to stalling around, and it's going to take a while. And there we go. It's a bit rough on the faces, but the damage is still there. It's not super crazy, but it's good enough for Citadel. And next, let's do the Deliriums, just for the same transparency as the previous video. I test the Ferrasta on Deliriums, the same with this one. We're going to see how it performs on Deliriums. And generally speaking, the Deliriums, you're going to need to be a little bit careful here because of the Delirium itself. I have like 154. So as you can see, it starts to struggle, the same with Ferrasta. But when you already have like the Archon ups and all that stuff, it's generally not that bad for this build because you still have the Explode. So the Explode itself could carry the clear a little bit, but you still need more time to like, you know, kind of kill the monster and stuff. So I'm getting stunned. Alright, the build can take few hits, but just don't take too much hit like I just did this one. So as you can see, at Delirium you need to be careful. The damage incoming is a lot scarier, and in general it's just a lot harder to do. But because of the Explode, we're still able to do it. You just need to be a little bit careful. And one thing about this build, when you play it, it's very easy to forget that you are a range build. You're not necessarily a melee build. So the Raven is a range, and your area with the Raven is still pretty big. So you don't really have to like, you know, get close every single time. You can kind of pull off a little bit, just kind of back off a little bit. It's not really that big of a deal. And as you can see, the explosion is still carry. The Mad Flight itself is still good enough for the pit. It's just on the clear, it's not as easy as you see before the daily. I mean, obviously, because the daily does make the things significantly more difficult. So just for the transparency's sake, like, I like the clear on this build, but when you start going to daily, you have to be really, really careful, because this build doesn't have like, you know, Giga DPS, something like that. It's good enough because of the Explode, but we're really relying on the Explode for the clear. So you still have to kill a target for it to explode. So, you know, you get what I mean. So as you can see, we're still able to do it. It's just a bit rough, especially if your Archon like triggered a bit late. But generally speaking, you still can do daily. You just have to be a little bit careful with it. So now let's get into all the setup. And for the stuff, this is the same stuff that I used before. Level 20 Spanning Conspiracy. For the rune, I go for mana and increase damage with command skill. And there is another rune that you can use. This is a caster weapon. Gain 50% maximum life as extra maximum runic ward. And this is pretty good if you need some runic ward, because we do still use refutations, and refutation is just a really good multiplier that we really need for this build. So you have to have some runic ward here. There's another options beside the mana, and because this is still a minion build, we have +2 minion on the helmet, +4 minion on the amulet, and +2 on the belt. And for the ring, you want mana on your prefix, percentage mana and flat mana, and you want minion increase damage. And for the suffixes, pick something useful, and for the last suffixes, you want the cooldown recovery rate, because that will make you able to keep spamming the sniper like this. Not quite, but it's almost there, so we can trigger the Archon a little bit better. For the chest and the glove, you just want as much resistance as you can and as much energy as you can. And you want the maximum mana on your glove. Maximum mana, the flat maximum mana going to give you more mana. And the same with boots, you want flat mana here. But for the chest, you can just go for triple ES, as much ES as you can get here. And the reason why we are stacking mana is because we are Lich. And there is a node on the Lich that's going to increase the magnitude of the Unholy Might per 100 maximum mana. So the more mana you have, the more chaos damage you're going to have for the Mad Flight. Now this Unholy Might buff is not going to apply to your Wings and Trophy, but it's going to apply to your Mad Flight. The Wings and Trophy, like I showcased earlier, it's good enough. Delirium is a little bit struggling, but the Mad Flight, we really need as much damage as we can on the Mad Flight, because this is the only single target DPS we have. Very different from the Sanjin of Rasta. In Sanjin of Rasta, we have Sanjin to basically cover single target DPS. On this one, we don't have that, so you really want as much damage on your Mad Flight as possible. And another note for the gear is on the amulet. On the suffixes, you want the secretive modifier here, and you want damage taken from mana before life. So if you press your character tab, you scroll down on the damage redirections, you can see damage taken from mana before life is 71%. Ideally, you want to have something around 70%, maybe 80%. You do not want to have all of them, because the idea is to split the damage to your life and also to your mana, but the majority of the damage should go to your mana, because we're stacking mana. So you do want the damage taken from mana before life on your amulet. Body armor, there is a rune, Great Wolf Rune of Willpower. This is going to give you 15% damage is taken from mana before life. And the rest of them is basically come from jewel. Every jewel have 4% for the max roll. And in Lich, we have this socket over here. It's basically double the effect of your socket. So this one basically give 8% damage taken from mana before life. And every other jewel that we use going to have 4% damage taken from mana before life. And for the jewel itself, another modifier that we are looking for is increased mana regenerations, minion damage on the prefix. And for the second prefix, there's a multiple options. You can use hyper minion damage like this. You can also use increased wither magnitude, and you can also use curse magnitude. So because there is only so much we can scale from the skill itself, I decided to go a little bit further on scaling what the damage going to receive by the enemy. So for example, like Blasphemy, the Blasphemy reduce 54% chaos resistance on the target. And then we have Withering Presence. Withering Presence basically make the enemy take more chaos damage. And we also have Refutations that going to make them take 50% more damage. So this is a multiplier that happened at the end, and because we are very limited on scaling, I do want as much of this as possible. And for the tree itself, this is what the tree looks like. It's very standard for like mana stacking stuff. We have mana damage taken from mana over here. And there's also a few nodes over here that you can take if you want to, but this requires like 6 points. I think it takes too much point to get that. And there's also 8% here, but the same thing, you spend like 1, 2, 3, 4 points. And then there's also 1 here, but this one also take like at least 4 points. And if you include this one, it's become 5 points. So that's the reason why I try to get it from gear and from jewel, because a lot of this notable that give you damage taken from mana before life is not very efficient in the term of placement. And I'm also using From Nothing jewel here, with for the Whisper of Doom, and this allows us to take Dark Entry, which is really important, +1 level to all chaos, and we can take the Master Hexes, increase the curse magnitude, and also the same with this one, and this one is increased effect of the Archon buff, and we also have immunity to shock where we have the Archon buff. I also using the Megalomaniac. This is to get the Warlord leader over here, because I cannot find another way to get this node, and this node is quite strong because it gives the ally in your presence deal 40% increased damage, and because the Raven now count as ally, this gives 40% increased damage basically. So this jewel basically just to get the 40% increased damage. So if this is getting too expensive, you can just drop this one and you can just use the rare jewel like I showed earlier. And this one does have also Master of Hexes, so it saved me 1 point on this one, but it's really not that big of a deal. And another things about this tree is we are playing with Archon, so we are using the Anointment. This is a new Anointment this league, and this is Anointment only notable, so you have to anoint this if you want to get this node. And this basically make the Archon buff doesn't have a recovery period, but the downside is going to reduce the effect of your Archon buff by 50%, and we take some of the increased effect of Archon buff here to basically compensate for that. The same thing here, and also the same thing here. And we also got a bit here. And I'm also taking the Archon buff durations because the 15% chance, like you see earlier, sometimes it can be very, very annoying to trigger. So hopefully we got a little bit buff on this one, like, I don't know, make it 30% or something like that. Minion command skill is not something you can spam. And if this is like 15%, you have to cast like 6 to 7 times in average to trigger the Archon Undead. And that's easily 6 to 7 seconds. So I really hope that buff this node. I mean, that's the entire point of playing Archon, right? You already using the anointment like this, which is really, really expensive to anoint, and then you spend bunch of points to the Archon notable. You do want to be able to use the Archon pretty efficiently, and for right now, 15% is just way too low. But once again, for the Raven Flock, we do not have that much scaling factor, so I basically try to get as much more multiplier as I can get on my hand. So that basically is the passive tree. Is pretty straightforward, and one thing I forget to mention is probably the boots. On boots, you need the 15% spirit here to get the second sniper. So if you see over here, the sniper, I have 2 snipers. So basically, the reason why I have 2 snipers, because if you only have 1, when you fire 1, you have to wait quite a while to be able to, like, you know, fire again. And that's kind of a bit annoying, but it's still doable. But if you can get 15 spirit on your boots, we basically can get another sniper, and that basically make the sniper skill become a lot easier to use, and that's going to help with the Archon triggering, right? The more cast you can, the more command skill you can spam, the easier for you to get the Archon Undead. And for the gem itself, it's still the same as before. We are using Master, Swift Affliction, and then Hulking Minions, which is not great, but this is the only thing we have. And then Minion Mastery, this is very, very sad support gems. And then we have Beating 2. Now, Beating 2 only scale the the Mad Flight, which is not ideal, but we do need more damage on the Mad Flight. So Beating 2, I'm decided to use this one instead of Magnify Aria, because with the Explode, you really do not need that much AoE on your Raven. So if, theoretically speaking, if we can get 2 more support gems, I don't know, somehow GGG make a new patch and we got 2 extra new support gems that have, like, I don't know, 25 to 30% more damage, and that is like a generic damage that the Raven can use that can benefit the Wing Entropy and the Mad Flight. This skill can be really, really good. So I don't think the base damage is that far behind. They probably still need to buff the base fight a little bit, but I don't think it falls behind that much. And for the Blasphemy, it's the same thing. I'm using Despair. I do not use Tame Chain because I don't think I need them, because we clear it pretty well. So there's no reason to use the Tame Chain. But if you want to, you probably have to figure out the reservation. But you can replace the Heightened Curse with the Tame Chain. Once again, you have to tinker around the reservation because we are very, very tight on Spirit. And these 2 just to get you more AoE, and Chaos Mastery just to get the breakpoint on Despair. The breakpoint I think is level 23. You get 1% more of Chaos Resistance. It's not that big of a deal, but like I said, I try to squeeze as much DPS as I can from this build. And Withering Presence is very simple. You need Prolonged Duration and Chaos Mastery. And Refutations, Prolonged Duration and Cooldown Recovery. And we have bunch of minion here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 minions. So this basically give the Master 42% in more damage. And I do have something like this, like Tool Stillness. This is just to help, like, freeze thing a little bit. You probably don't need it, but since I have some currency, I spend it for this kind of support gem, because we do deal a lot of chaos damage. If you can go inside here, the Ice Shot, like, the total chaos damage is pretty high. It probably can freeze, like, small things. It helps you survive a little bit, but once again, it's not really mandatory. The same thing with Arsonist. This one to apply Ignite. Originally, I want to use the Sniper as a damage too, and that's the reason why you see Ignite here. But once again, you don't really need them. This minion basically exists just to buff the Master. And for the Sniper, originally, I'm using something like Rapid Attack 2 and Beating 2, because the Skeleton Sniper Gas Arrow still deal a decent amount of DPS. This is 84k. And I think if you use the Beating 2, this go up to like 100 something K. And if you use something like Voltage Shot, that number basically times 3, right? So the damage from the gust arrow is still pretty good, but I just end up to just use the sniper just for the trigger for the Archon. Because that will make them cost less mana with efficiency. I can use something like this, and then basically I don't have to like running out of mana when I cast the sniper, because this is an issue before when I use the sniper as a damage too, because this command skill does cost a lot of mana. And if you have to spam them all the time like this, sometimes you can run out of mana. And if there is one minion that actually do something, it's probably Storm Mage. And that is because of the S Radiance. And once again, because we are scaling Unholy Might, the Arc actually deal quite a lot of chaos damage. In fact, we deal more chaos damage than lightning damage. So having S Radiance will allow the Storm Mage to shock better on the enemy, and shock just another extra multiplier for the damage that we really need on this setup. And I think that's basically it. For the detail, you can see the POB and the mobiletic. I will leave both links on the descriptions. And as usual, if you guys have any questions, just leave in the comment below. I will try my best to answer it. And thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you on the next one.